Recently, the highly anticipated Elden Ring DLC, Shadow of the Erdtree, was released and to mostly critical acclaim amongst the player base. Though, there have been some interesting discourse amongst the review cycle out there around the game's difficulty, which FromSoft do seem to have done a small amount of course correction on. Me personally, I'm yet to play, if at all, the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC. I did enjoy Elden Ring playing through it, but as I often feel with FromSoft games, I find the trophy and achievement lists a little frustrating from the perspective of someone that does want to get them all, but does also value their time when picking and choosing what to play games-wise. Nevertheless, I did still enjoy playing the game and getting all of the trophies completed, and I did get the Platinum on Elden Ring. Upon seeing the discussion online for Shadow of the Erdtree, it became apparent to me that there is no achievements or trophy support for this DLC on any platform. For now, that has swayed me enough not to play the DLC, given that I was undecided anyway just based on time commitments for other games I'd like to play. I now feel that there's also a part of the experience in how I like to finish games is another reason for me not to commit to playing it right now. I understand that some people may feel this an odd thing, but rest assured I will discuss that viewpoint more later in this video. It was during that thought process I started to think more about trophy and achievement support as a whole, and why I think it's so important to me as a player, as well as the other trophy and achievement hunters out there. So that's what this video is about, and why I want to ask and answer the question of, is trophy and achievement support important? So I want to start by going through a little bit of history on the topic of trophies and achievements and their general origin. I'm sure everybody knows, but let me make it clear that I'm talking about platform-specific trophies and achievements from PlayStation and Xbox ecosystems respectively. I suppose that you could even consider this to cover the Steam achievements in some respects. The origins of the first and most important system to introduce this concept were back in 2005 with the Xbox 360. That system being Gamerscore. Originally, every retail Xbox 360 game launched with 1000 Gamerscore as the maximum amount achievable, which was distributed across a range of achievements that would give you varying amounts of Gamerscore for what was usually a variety of both skill-based and time-based targets of unlock. I should note that that maximum of 1000 Gamerscore at this point was not mandatory to have in place. The smaller and more contained Xbox Live Arcade titles were given an initial maximum of 200 Gamerscore, specifically over 12 achievements, given the fact the Xbox Live Arcade titles were much more indie and smaller in nature, which obviously made logical sense. February the 1st, 2007 saw some changes to the policies enforced across all of the developers for any games released on the Xbox 360 that ensured a more consistent experience from game to game. The first was the implementation of 1000 Gamerscore minimum for every regular disc-based release. Developers didn't need to hit that 1000 Gamerscore from the game's release per se, but any future achievements added to the game that eventually raised it to the 1000 Gamerscore had to be free content for the players. In addition to that, all paid for DLC now had the option to introduce a further 250 Gamerscore per release DLC every quarter within the game's first year of release, making for a total of 1750 Gamerscore for a game following a full year of post-release DLC content. They also changed the Xbox Live Arcade games policy here slightly in a similar fashion, but finding specifics of those online is something I haven't been able to get a concrete answer on, as it seems it initially allowed up to a further 50 Gamerscore for DLC content for those Xbox Live Arcade titles, but there are examples of Xbox Live Arcade titles that I found online being about 400 Gamerscore in total, which obviously kind of insinuates that Xbox Live Arcade games started to do their own thing at some point. As time goes on in the Xbox Live ecosystem, the achievements are implemented across the Windows Live service to pair with that of Xbox, and more changes start to occur further down the line, which allows us to see games like Gears of War 3, for example, hit the 2000 Gamerscore mark. Looking at Steam, they obviously realise that Microsoft is onto something, and they implement their own achievement system in November of 2007. For the most part, it more or less copies achievement for achievement from what we see on the Xbox side of things, but Steam itself doesn't have a Gamerscore or any similar point system in place, as much as it is just the text-based badges, and from my own observations, I'd say that they're talked about less within the gaming community as a whole for that reason. It seems that these systems are very much more console-focused than PC-based, with the exception of Nintendo, of course. In response to the well-received Gamerscore system, on July 2nd, 2008, nearly a whole 2 years since the PS3's release release in 2006, Sony rolled out the opposition feature for Gamerscore in the guise of the trophy system. The concept is like Gamerscore, but rather than having points broken down to reach 1000 Gamerscore, there are instead 4 categories of trophies in bronze, silver and gold trophies, with a final platinum trophy being unlocked once you've received all the trophies in the first 3 categories. Again, like Gamerscore, all with varying degrees on difficulty and time lengths associated to them to be unlocked, and in them they introduce a more weighted based system that sees fewer of the higher standard silver and gold trophies in comparison to the amount of bronze ones present. There is some complexity on top of that in that the trophies individually are worth a certain number of points that contribute to the player's overall trophy level. These weighted point systems were changed in October 2020, but I'll show them here just so you can see what they look like. I'm glossing over this a little bit as the actual trophy level personally is something that I never really pay too much attention to, as it's not such a good representation to the overall trophy counts, which you can actually see on a PSN profile anyway. To me, just looking at the trophy count is the better metric. For the most part, the PlayStation trophy system, like the Steam one, follows suit with the Xbox in that all the games across multiple platforms unlock effectively the same trophies to their akin achievement. And also like Xbox, from January the 1st, 2009, Sony make it mandatory as a feature to include trophy support in the same way Xbox did with Gamerscore for those disc-based releases. Since the inception of these systems, there have been other minor changes and additions, like the rarity of the trophy or achievement shown, added over the years, but overall, their core concept remains the same. They act as a digital reward for objectives players can carry out in-game. All of which, as you've heard now, come with their well-known soundbite and notifications that have become a staple in console gaming and have transformed, for many of us, the way we truly play a game. So why do we love trophies and achievements so much? I'm not saying that this applies to absolutely all of gamers. Not in any case do I think that it does. Some people continue to play in these gaming console ecosystems having never thought twice about the trophy and achievement systems, and that is a completely fine and perfectly valid way to play. There are, however, many of us that have become, in a sense, driven by these new virtual accomplishments that we have to show for our efforts in the games that we play. By saying that, I already know there are likely some people that are thinking why that might be the case. After all, they are just some pixels on a screen saying that you did something. What's the big deal? To those people, I say they are more than that. Without going too off topic and diving into the human brain and why it has such a need to be validated sometimes, there are a few points I'd like to make in both the reasons I love interacting with these systems, why my friends do, and looking through some forums why other people do. I'm going to bring up a few comments made by some people I've spoken to so that you can see the multiple versions on the way that people feel about these systems. The first and most simple point, bragging rights. Gone are the days where you could tell people that you found Bigfoot in San Andreas and have them just believe you. We now have actual comparable data to be in competition with other players and friends with. Milestones that we can share and timestamps of things we've managed to overcome and experience. I can't tell you the number of times I've been in conversation with someone about a game and they ask if I've ever played it, and rather than answer, all I have to do is open my phone app and show them the glory. I am overselling it a little bit of course, but you get the point. It is no different than a fisherman posting the size of the fish that he caught. Take a look at the first person to achieve 1 million gamer score, an achievement that will live on forever. No pun intended. The second is how these achievement lists will often, though not always, allow you to experience almost everything that a game has to offer. Whether that's secret locations and characters, side quest lines, some in-game skins, or just some extra lines of dialogue. Trophy and achievement lists, when designed well, will give you the full experience that the game has to offer. The third, and my personal favourite reason, some of these objectives will have you playing games in ways that you just simply never would have originally. Taking Halo as an example, there are some achievements that have you speedrunning those games on the highest difficulty. Under no circumstance without the achievement to do so would I have even thought to attempt this in the first place. Yet because of them, I have such fond memories of working through Halo CE speedruns on the Master Chief Collection with one of my best friends that we still reminisce on even today. It's in examples like those that trophies and achievements go beyond just being a simple objective to complete or letting you see all the game has to offer. When planned right by developers, they create their own experiences and make games all the better for it. I say when planned right, as bad lists do exist. Sometimes you will get lackluster trophy or achievement lists that just have you completing standard story missions of an adventure game and not much else. Some lists would have you doing so many kills with weapon types to allow you to change up your playstyle more often and have a goal in doing so. Others will ask you to do the most mundane of tasks to achieve them. Not all lists are made perfect or even well, with some not being made at all where DLC is concerned, such as the Shadow of Erdtree. Before I get to that point, I had a chat with a friend of mine that works in game development here in the UK, and he had some interesting points to put across. I'll put his words up directly here so you don't just get my abridged version, but effectively, he comes at it from two angles. The first is that these systems are a great way to boost player engagement in the way that we interact with the trophies and achievements, such as Easter eggs being found, content being created around them, and communities having measurable stats to work against than what is often alone in the game itself. The opposition perspective, however, that he puts across is more about allowing players to experience a given game without having the pressures of feeling like they are working through a checklist should trophies or achievements be the only motivator to play the game. Especially when considering most players may go about getting those through viewing content online, etc., to know how to achieve them. Basically, allowing a more natural approach to working through a game's content, citing Nintendo as the obvious scenario where all this is achievable, given that they don't really have this kind of system in place. I do partially agree with this sentiment, but I also have slightly different opinions on the reality of it. Those being that if you have a player base that is on a platform with trophy and achievement support, and they begin to play some large open world epic, does having trophies or achievements in place have any negative effect for those that don't care to interact with those systems? I personally think the answer is no. If you have someone that doesn't care about the unlocks to begin with, why would they care if they were included with post-release content or not? I absolutely agree with the sentiment that trophies and achievements don't need to be in place to enjoy a game, though I don't think there is any valid reason to exclude them altogether for the large community of players that take enjoyment from them, given that no one is affected in a negative way overall. So wrapping this up and bringing it full circle to how I started this video, you may have noted that I said earlier with the DLC policies outlined by Microsoft in those Xbox 360 days, all of the DLC achievements were optional to include up to 250 gamer score, not mandatory in any way. That same policy of not being mandatory to include them for DLC is in place across both achievements and trophies still today. Thus, we get Shadow of the Erdtree, this DLC not having any related achievements or trophies has sort of tipped the scale for me in not being too bothered about skipping over it for the moment. At its core, I suppose the reason being is that for the number of hours this DLC asks of you, it would be nice for some sort of recognition in the milestones throughout. It's for all the reasons I've listed prior to this that I think this should be the case. I never really understand the logic in not including them. All it does is allow more players to interact with the game in more ways than simply just playing it. It becomes a method of comparison and enables this collection of virtual memorabilia. I don't really see what either the player or developer would lose in including the lists. Elden Ring isn't the only game to have done this though. There have been many post-DLC releases with the exact same approach, none of which I can find any real reason as to why it was the case. So yes, to summarise my opinion, I do think that trophy and achievement support is important to include on DLC content, and I don't see any negatives for all the player base to have this be the case, given those that don't care about the systems wouldn't be impacted overall anyway. I'm expecting a variety of views on this one, so please feel free to comment below on what your opinions are around the trophy and achievement systems and whether you think the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC should have included support for them. If you have any memories of unlocking trophies and achievements, please share those in the comments too, as I'd love to hear them. Thank you very much for taking the time to watch this. I hope you enjoyed it. Please consider subscribing to the channel, as I'll be doing more game discussions and reviews, and if you have any thoughts or opinions on the videos, please feel free to comment below, as I'd like to make these both as entertaining and helpful as possible. My name is Liquidizer. It's been a pleasure, and I hope to see you again real soon.